producer of the film Grant Heslov, and screenwriter William Monahan. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Just like that, you appear. I love it. From the cast, please welcome Ben Affleck and Daniel Ranieri. Hello, gents. Great to see you.
Hi.
Also joining us, Lily Rabe and Christopher Lloyd. Hello to you both. And also joining us, Tye Sheridan and Briana Middleton. Hello to you two. Well, here. I'm going to kick it off with a couple quick questions, but then we have a lot of great questions from the participating media. Grant, I want to start with you because it's my understanding that you're the one that first read this book and then pitched it essentially to your production company partner, George Clooney. And that's how this all kind of started. I'm curious to know how exactly you found the book and how did you sell it to George? What did you tell him that made him instantly be on board as well?
Well, I wish it was that easy. I read the book when it came out about 15 years ago, and I loved it. And I called George and I said, well, let's go after this book. And we went after it, and we didn't get it. And then it went into development in various places, and then cut to 15 years later, I got a call from Ted Hope, who said, who's then running Amazon, and said, hey, we've got this script, nobody's seen it, literally, we just got it last night, we want to send it to you guys, see if you're interested in doing it. And so they sent it, we read it, and that was it. It came back to us somehow, and but it was because of the screenplay that this guy wrote.
Okay. So William, from your point of view, how did it enter your life, and why did you determine it was a good fit for you?
Well, I'd read the book when it came out, and I thought it was remarkable in many ways. Most first books by first-time authors, they tend to throw their backgrounds and families under the bus, use them for material, and sort of mythologize themselves. You know, you can go to Hemingway or Fitzgerald or anything in the 20th century. But this book by J.R., it was about a guy who loved his family and whose family loved him. And I thought, this is great. When it came around and Amazon asked me to do it, I said yes immediately. And it was just really good fortune that Grant and George were in a state of readiness. You know, it's a very happy circumstance.
Ben, from your point of view, it's just so cool for me to see all of you on this screen, this very impressive cast. I know Christopher Lloyd is someone you've idolized for a long time, and then you're also working with these really exciting younger actors as well. What was it like for you to finally get a chance to work with Chris? And then what was your experience like working with, all of these other exciting people in the cast?
Well, I mean, it was a tremendous experience just as an actor to be, it's a collaborative medium, and no matter what anybody tells you, you can only be as good and do things good as the material, as the director, as the other actors in it. And in that sense, it's like so profoundly lucky. For me, it was one of those cases where it was hard for me to understand. I read the script and thought, well, nobody's passed on this, so I must be the first person, and I can't quite believe it, and I was really, really grateful. And then the cast got populated around me, and I met this guy, and we worked together, and he was so fabulous. And I knew George and Grant well, and I really liked them and loved working with them. And I mean, every once in a while, like something really great happens in your life, and you just sort of hope that you're ready and able to capitalize on that. And it showed up and to work with Lily, where you just, if you're lost or confused, as I frequently am in scenes, and wonder what I should do next. She's sort of like the life raft, as you're flailing around in the ocean, and you can think, okay, I'll just follow her. And Chris, yes, when Back to the Future came out, I thought, well, that ends the debate about the best picture ever made, and that's it. And then I saw him. He was the first celebrity I ever saw in real life, walking around the streets of Boston. I think doing a play there, although I've been too shy to really follow up with Chris and ask him that because I'm still too starstruck and intimidated. But yes, in all senses across the board, and ending with George, who, as a director, it's just everything sort of comes down from the top, and he created this enormously welcoming, safe, beautiful atmosphere where you felt like you could succeed, and you felt like you know you could take chances, and you felt as though people were working collectively and rooting for one another. And one of his many gifts is his deep understanding of actors and what it is that will help us be successful, and his tremendous affinity for and fondness and compassion for actors, and it shows. I think it's he is sort of his formative years. I get the sense where he still sees himself as that guy showing up in LA, and sleeping on Grant's couch, or Grant sleeping on his couch, or them both sleeping on the couch together, or whatever it was, and trying to make it in this business. And he has a lot of compassion for how hard that is, and how much rejection it is, and how much self-doubt can be involved in that, and how when you get a chance to do something, you really want to be afforded the best opportunity to succeed. And he's very generous in that he gives that to everyone else, and in particular to me. I feel my performance benefited so much from his experience and wisdom and talent, and his generosity to say, like, try this and try that, and invariably made the scenes better. So usually you get on these things, these interviews, and you sort of bullshit and say, hey, I liked everybody and it was great. And it's very nice to actually be able to tell the truth.
Good. Daniel, it's such a cool kind of 21st century story of your mom shooting the video, which went viral, and then ended up on Joel McHale's Instagram, and then you're on Jimmy Kimmel, and George and Grant see it, and who is this kid? And here you are in your first movie. I'm curious to know, when you got the part and thought about what this experience would be like, was doing this movie and acting for the first time easier or harder than you thought it would be?
To be honest, it was easier than I thought it would be.
And that's why he's good in the movie.
But the first scene I was kind of nervous, but then after it, I said, oh wait, what? No reason to be nervous, this is easy. So then the rest of the scenes, I just wasn't nervous, we just filmed it, had a good time, and I loved the experience. It was so good, and when my mom actually told me I got the part, I was so happy, and I was running all around the house because I was so happy. And
what did George tell you to make you not nervous? What did he tell you not to do?
Not to look directly into the camera, because then you get nervous.
Grant, if you learned that lesson, things could have been very different today.
I know. I'm looking in the camera right now, and look.
There you go. You can't stop.
I've got my glasses off. I don't even know where the camera is.
Oh, that's great. Lily, I really like how Ben just described you as a life raft on this. And when I met you a couple of weeks ago, I said I wanted a whole movie on Mom. I still do. And I think for an audience, you feel like that too. That can't be something you're trying for, but I am sure it's something that you strive for on the set. What do you like? What do you like to project on set to your other actors?
I think that something that was so remarkable about this group of people, sometimes you walk onto a set and you'll be with other actors or a director or, someone in the group or multiple people where you feel there's a kind of defensive posturing, that people have come in and they have, they're sort of there to give their performance that they've made these choices about, and you can be there with them. But this was the opposite experience in every single way. It was like every person, every actor, George, everyone, Grant, sort of arrived to the set with these wide open hearts and this incredible curiosity and this incredible trust. There was no second guessing. There was just an openness that was really palpable and remarkable to experience across the board. And I think in the telling of a story like this, which is so heart forward, it was such a generous experience. George is such a generous director to his actors. I think he's also a very generous director to his audience. He doesn't try to control what their experience is going to be, and he's never trying to control you as an actor. And so, gosh, my hope is to always be able to come in from that place to a set, but it's a lot easier when you're just surrounded by that kind of energy and genuine collaboration And I think also just a sense of we all felt very privileged to be telling such a quiet story and such a delicate story.
Christopher, I'm curious to know, when you're in a movie like this where the family dynamic is so important, is there something that you as an actor like to do with your castmates in order to foster a family dynamic that will then transfer to the screen?
I feel, you know, in an ideal situation that this was, there's kind of an innate trust in each other because we're all trying to achieve the same thing for the same people. So it's kind of a collaboration just by its nature, and which is great when you have that going on. You know, you can do your thing and not have to apologize for it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We got some great questions from the journalists watching. Briana, here's one for you. This is your first feature film. What was the most exciting aspect of working on this project? And what did George Clooney teach you that you might bring to future projects?
I mean, everything was exciting. It was, I loved the script, and after getting the part, I loved the book, reading the book, and I didn't work with most of the people here. I mainly worked with Tye, but getting to be a part of a cast like this was really exciting, and getting to bring this particular character to life in the body that I'm in as a Black woman, I think was really exciting. And I think the most important thing that George taught me that I've taken on other projects already was just that I can trust myself. Lily was saying that he's such a kind, generous person, and that comes out in the way that he directs his actors. And I felt, especially being very new, I felt very trusted and thought, okay, if he's not worrying about me, then I don't need to worry about myself.
Great. Tye, here's another question that came in. And it's so interesting because not only are you and Daniel in this movie together, but you actually have a scene together, which is such a unique thing. But the question is, in playing the same character at different ages, how closely did you two work together to be able to do that and make the performances consistent?
Well, we didn't really get to work too closely. I mean, there was a lot of overlap. We were shooting on the same days, and we would often have lunch together. And so, you know, we got to know each other a little bit off camera. And it wasn't actually the scene that you're referring to wasn't originally, it wasn't in the screenplay that I read when the project first came my way, and it was more of an idea, I think, that, you know, that George had been playing around with, this idea of, you know, the clash of these two characters, really, you know, a confrontation of, you know, his younger self, you know, to confront his direction in life. And, you know, he told me, you know, like 3 or 4 weeks into production, hey, I'm working on this really cool scene. It's between you and Daniel. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, it's this, you know, dream scene. I think it's going to be really cool. And so he sent it to me, and I read it. It was great. So I'm glad we got one scene, but I think that maybe Daniel can speak to this a little bit. But, you know, we were, you know, like I said, we were shooting simultaneously, so it was almost like we were building the character together at the same time, and George was just at the helm of, you know, directing that and you know, making sure we were both growing in the right way through the performance and the life of the shoot. What'd you think, Daniel?
Yeah, I think the same thing. And me and you had like lunch together in your trailer sometimes off set, and it was just great. And me and Tye actually have a relation in real life now, and I love him so much, like my big brother. And
love you too, buddy.
Love you too. And the scene that we got together was just great, and the way George made it up was just impeccable, and it was great.
He's got to swear a lot.
That's what he was most excited about. That he liked to slap me in the head. I was like, yeah, this is fun. This is the best scene in the movie.
Ben, here's a question that came in for you. In the film, JR looks up to Uncle Charlie not only as a father figure, but as a guy who he admires. when you were growing up, who in your life did you most look up to?
I had a number of people in my life that I was lucky enough to have really support me, in particular as regards like my ambitions. My father, interestingly, was also a guy who was a self-taught guy and didn't go to college and was kind of a similar sort of reverse class snob, and but was very, very interested in language and writing and storytelling, and imbued in me at a young age an appreciation for that. And that you didn't have to be a fancy person or a rich person or, you know, have gone to a cool school or to use language well and to understand it. Understand the power of storytelling was kind of available to everybody in a very democratic way. My godfather, Jack McNeese, has been an extremely important figure in my life, my whole life, in so many ways. And ultimately, I had a drama teacher who was extraordinarily inspiring and influential, and without whose genuine belief, at least I believed he believed in me. I don't know whether he really did, but he seemed very authentic when he gave me a sense of confidence about going out, being able to do this, and so that I didn't seem reckless and crazy and absurd to just go out to LA and decide that I could, you know, be in movies. And despite the fact that nobody wanted me in their movies or their television show or as an extra or anything, I thought, well, Jerry thinks I'm good, so I probably am, I guess. And that's an incredibly powerful thing that people are able to provide young people as mentors. It's an undervalued role in society, but it makes a huge difference, I think.
William, here's a question that came in for you. What were the main assets of JR's memoir for you? And what were the main challenges of translating it into cinematic language?
Well, the main problem always is that you're looking at a 400, 500 page book, and you've got to bring it in about 115 or 120 pages, you know, and if you had done a straight adaptation of the book, you would have had to have the kid, a teenager, and the young man, and so one of those had to go. You know, and it had to be the teenager, I guess, and you know, try to make the young boy work with the college-age kid was the way you had to go with it. As far as assets are concerned, the book itself is just a mine of riches, and I grew up at the same time. I think JR's 3 or 4 years younger than I am. So we did the same thing. We were journalists in New York at the same time. I come from the same sort of background, you know, less farting and septic, but, you know, same sort of background with very tough, literate Irish uncles. And, you know, it suited me. It suited me to the ground to do it, but it was a great challenge because a lot of people love the book and you don't want to screw up, you know? So,
Great.
Many assets.
Grant, here's a question that came in for you that I like a lot about the music in the movie. The music in the film is almost its own character and really helps set the overall tone. Was that a deliberate choice? And how involved were you and George in the song selection process?
Yeah, before we started shooting, we had decided that we weren't going to have a lot of traditional score for the film. We normally work with Alexander Desplat, who we love, and is just, you know, we just love to work with him. But we felt like this one really, we wanted, as soon as the film started, we wanted to put people in the period. And so when we were shooting, even when we were shooting, George and I would just walk around with our phones and just play each other songs and say, how about this one, how about this one? And that's basically how we did it. And then when we started to see cut scenes, we would just take our iPhone and put it up to the, you know, and listen to it with the scene on. And then we got a great music supervisor who, you know, once they told us, well, you can't afford all those songs, then we said, okay, well, this is the kind of the songs we want. And then the big ones, the big ticket ones, the ones we couldn't live without, the Paul Simon and the Jackson Browne and some of those, you know, those, that's where we spent our money. And then the rest, we had to do a little wheeling and dealing.
That's called being a producer.
Yeah.
Lily, we have just a couple minutes left. I want to try to get to a few of you before we haven't run out of time. Lily, here's a question for you. What were your biggest sources of inspiration in coming up with your characterization of Dorothy, besides obviously the script by William Monahan?
The script and the memoir. The memoir, like he said, was just a sort of a mine of riches. It's dedicated to his mother, and there were so many beautiful things to sort of fill my suitcase with before showing up to start shooting. I had a very wonderful mother, and something that she had, which, you know, she's very different from Dorothy, but my mother was someone who really, from the beginning of my life, there is these periods of time that we have where we sort of feel like we are in waiting for the good things to start happening, to figure out who we are, to figure out what we love, to figure out what we're going to do next, between breakups or between jobs, or you know, or at the age that JR is in the film, trying to figure out what that is. My mother was so brilliant at sort of pointing me in the direction of realizing that there's so much life to be had in those moments in between. There's so much opportunity for joy in the sort of down moments, and those moments of stillness, and that feeling of waiting, which you feel so much as a young person, and then throughout your life. So that was such a remarkable quality in my mother that I hope I was able to carry through in the playing of this part.
I love it.
Wasn't a bad actress either. Just want to say that.
I'll say. Christopher, here's a question for you. When it comes to accepting roles, what is it that you're looking for in a project?
I guess when I kind of read the part for the first time, or description, or I want to feel that I could connect with something about the person that everybody else could connect with if I do it right. So there's otherwise, well, what's the point?
Here's a question, Briana, that I thought was really interesting. Sydney is a very complex character, and that it's very tough to side with or against her depending on the situation. Is this something that you felt while playing her?
Yes and no. I mean, I hope people feel conflicted on how to feel about her throughout the film. I, as the person playing her, was just an advocate for her and totally on her side. And I don't know, I think I'm glad that there's, we get to see her family. There's a scene with her family, and we get to kind of see the world that she comes from. And I think that, I hope that adds an element to her other than being the crazy girlfriend that kind of breaks this guy's heart. Yeah, she's very complex. I think she's someone who knows what her trajectory is, but is maybe conflicted about what that is, and is still a young person, but understands the world that she's in and where she comes from and the expectations that she has. And I think we're just seeing her figure that out too, and he just happens to get caught in the wake of it.
Yeah.
Can I say something, Dave? 1 second. And I just want to say this for purely selfish reasons, because I like to be right about things and validated later on. Like, George is so good at casting, and but it's no secret that Lily's great, and Chris is great, and Tye, and Bill, all these, he's assembled all these amazing people. And I hope that people remember this movie and like it for a lot of reasons. But I can promise you that this movie will be remembered for sure as Briana's first movie. I watched the performance last night on a big screen, which I hadn't seen it on. And I know there's a lot of, big screen, there's a lot of debate about this. But what is true The bigger screen is bigger, and watching the nuances in her performance, the delicacy, the honesty, the elegance, the degree to which she didn't judge the character, didn't allow the audience to judge the character, the extraordinary presence that you have. But I don't know, we didn't get to work together, and I'm really sorry now because you're a spectacular actor, and I think you're going to be I think you're going to have a really long, successful career, and this will be the. You know what her first movie was? There's a little movie. You remember that actor Ben Affleck, hit the '70s. Anyway, George Clooney, he was a director. That was her first movie. I think all of us will go down as footnotes in your first as being in your first movie, because you really. I mean, I had not seen an actor that come out in the first performance and be that sophisticated, intelligent, and as delicate, and it was. I mean, hey, look, what do I know? But I thought you were fabulous, so I just want to say.
Thank you, Ben.
And by the way, this is being recorded, so you're going to have that, Briana.
I'm telling you, I want you to tell me I was right. Maybe if
We have 1 minute left, so Tye, I want to finish with you. The question that came in for you, which is JR learns a lot from Uncle Charlie. What is something that you learned from him or from this film experience that you can adapt and use in your everyday life?
Well, I mean, I think that's that's super important about every project you take on, right? I mean, you feel like you want to make sure it's challenging you and you're growing through it. And I think that this movie, man, I felt a personal connection to it in so many ways. One, in the relationship that JR has with his mother. I spent a lot of time, just me and my mom, when I was younger, and I think it really made me reflect back on those times, and then and also you're a lot of times you find yourself stuck in life, you find yourself in a rut, you find yourself in desperate need of advice or desperate need for someone to tell you, hey dude, they call you out on your crap, and I think that's exactly I think Uncle Charlie does that in multiple ways in this film, I think just as we were, talking about last night, how important role models are in your life, how they can make or break you, if you don't have those people in your life. So I think that's one, thing that I learned, through playing this character, but also I think the JR spends so much time longing for someone or something that he feels is absent in his life. And he comes to realization that, maybe he's been looking in the wrong places, that what he actually needs, what's purely necessary, has been there all along. And I think that we all have that moment in our lives, and it's amazing to have, get to explore that through character, and specifically in this story.
Well, I congratulate you all on a beautiful film. I thank you all for your time this morning. I thank all the journalists for the great questions and for watching. So William and Grant and Ben and Daniel, Lily, Chris, Tye, Briana, thanks so much. And enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.